Good morning, everyone. Today we are welcoming you for the webinar on decoding BRSR. This is a series one. This is the first in a series of webinar aimed at providing deep insights into the intricacies of sustainable reporting. Sustainable reporting is becoming increasingly crucial for businesses across all sectors. Investors, stakeholders, regulators are demanding greater transparencies on environmental, social, and governance practices. It is no longer a nice to have, but a must have for responsible business operations. Today's webinar is designed to offer a comprehensive understanding of BRSR, business responsibility and sustainability reporting. We will cover its evolution, different versions like BRSR Core and BRSR Lite, its structure and its key components. Another critical aspect we will address in the relevance of BRSR reporting within the MSME context. Our goal is to equip you with the valuable insights and best practices for preparing sustainable information. Today we have with us CA Tejinder Kaur ji, Chairperson Dehradun branch of ICI, and CA Jasmeet Singh Chaudhary ji, Vice Chairman Dehradun branch of ICI. Ma'am, we would like you to invite you and over to you, ma'am, to give some welcome to all the participants. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Actually, it's been an honor to be here with all of you and presenting such an important topic. And I was looking forward to speak with ma'am and sir itself. So if I can start introducing or we want to wait for ma'am or sir to come.
Ma'am, they will be joining in few minutes. So
Okay.
in the meantime, we would like you to, Jasmeet sir also, we would like to welcome Jasmeet Singh Chaudhary ji, Vice Chairman, to sir have few words with the share few words with the participants.
Thank you and a very good afternoon. Special thanks to Sustainability Reporting Standards Board of ICI for giving the Dehradun branch this opportunity. We all understand now there is a committed transition of industry towards sustainability reporting. SEBI has revised the BRSR format and has incorporated the key performance indicators under the 9 ESG attributes. There is also a disclosure adherence as part of annual reports for the listed entities, which will subsequently mature and it will be in the nature of obligation and will be a compulsion. So we eagerly look forward to this webinar from the Institute. And I hope everyone, all of us would learn, and this would be one of the programs, it would be a precursor for other programs to follow. And of course, it will help our learning. It will help us to upscale. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, sir. Now we request you to just introduce our session speaker for today, Pranav Vivani ji.
Pranav Vivani ji has been over 15 years. He has been practicing. He's an associate partner with PW's assurance practice based in Hyderabad. He works on sustainability reporting and assurance in Hyderabad and Bangalore. He has over 15 years, like I said, professional experience in financial audits and sustainability. That is his forte now. He focuses on helping clients understand the sustainability reporting landscape and worked on reporting and process review under the BRSR and GRI frameworks. He has served clients in different industries across sectors, including automotive and pharmaceuticals. He's an active speaker at various forums on sustainability-related topics, BRSR, assurance, on sustainability, etc. So we welcome our speaker.
Thank you, sir. We would like to welcome our Vice Chairman, CA Dr. Anuj Goyal ji, for this webinar. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much.
We request Tejinder ma'am to just introduce our honorable Vice Chairman of this SRSB. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Very good afternoon, Tejinder ma'am. You are on mute.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. नमस्ते चौधरी जी.
नमस्ते भाई साहब, क्या हाल है? How are you?
बहुत बढ़िया.
Great to see
I'm
you.
really delighted to introduce our Vice Chairman of SRBC, CA Dr. Anuj Goyal sir, to everyone. Sir is a Central Council member of ICAI and Vice Chairman of the Sustainability Reporting Standard Board. He also serves as a Chairman of the Ethical Standard Board, the Professional Skill Enrichment Committee, and the Publication and CDS Directorate. He also served as a Chairman of the Ghaziabad chapter of the ICSI and ICM. With an extraordinary tenure of 17 years in the Central Council, 3 years in the Regional Council, and 6 years in the branch, including Chairman of the CRC and various ICI Central Committees, members of the editorial boards, and more, he has made a significant contributions to the profession. With vast experience exceeding 30 years and a wealth of knowledge, his contribution in the field of research and development have always been remarkable. He is a well-known speaker on various topics and also serves as a visiting faculty member at various institutions. Additionally, he has worked as an editor-in-chief and editor of various publications of professional interest. Sir, your dynamic approach and strategic vision has paved a crucial role in driving our initiatives forward, ensuring that we continue to meet the evolving needs of our members. Sir, your contribution has been instrumental in shaping the policies and programs that benefit all. I request you to give your opening remarks, sir.
Just give us 1 second, ma'am.
Very good afternoon. I'm really very happy that we are having the best of the resource person, Pranav Mani ji, and we are having the best of the enablers, Atijinder Kaur, the chairperson of Dehradun branch, JMS Chaudhary ji, our honorable vice chairperson of Dehradun branch, and all the other respected enablers. And from Sustainability Reporting Standard Board, we are having Sweta Goyal ma'am, and we are having all other respected chartered accountants and other officers from the Sustainability Reporting Standard Board. Mr. Goyal is there. So I'm really very happy that we are having this webinar today, which is very, very important for all of us. And I'm quite confident that with the help and support of our honorable guest speaker, we will be certainly enriching ourselves in this very, very important sustainability reporting field. And on decoding BRSR, a comprehensive understanding of BRSR. And I'm quite confident that when we are having the best of the resource person, we will certainly be enriching our knowledge as per the expectation of the regulators to deliver the things in the best possible manner. And we are having, of course, Sri Priya Kumar ma'am, our honorable chairperson of the Sustainability Reporting Standard Board, under whose leadership we are trying our level best to see that how we can really do something very, very concrete. We are going to have one national conference at Dehradun also very soon under the leadership of Atijinder Kaur ma'am and Chaudhary sir, so that the best of the chartered accountants of India, the chartered accountants of Uttarakhand, can have the best of the understanding of this very, very important sustainability reporting standards. And friends, as far as the series is concerned, we are trying our level best to see that how we can really do something very, very concrete for our honorable members who are attending this BCM webinar, not only from our country but outside country also. We are very well aware that the BRSR is important for making financial transactions transparent and ethical. And we must stay updated on BRSR regulations because they affect our business practices and client advice. Knowing about BRSR will boost your professional skills and help you give better advice to the clients. And this very important session is a continuation of BRSR series. In upcoming series sessions, we will be able to know more about specific parts of BRSR in detail. I would now like to extend once again a warm welcome to our honorable guest speaker, CA Pranav Ivaniji. A very big round of applause. And our honorable event enablers, our honorable chairperson of Dehradun branch of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, CA Tejinder Kaur ma'am, and CA Jasmeet Singh Chaudhary sir, our honorable vice chairperson of Dehradun branch. And I am quite confident that with the help and support of our office, Sweta Goelji and the entire team, Mr. Goel and the entire team, we will certainly be enriching ourselves in the best possible manner in this field of sustainability. And I will not be taking your further time as we are very eager to hear our honorable guest speaker, Pranav Ivanji. I once again welcome all our honorable delegates from each and every part of the country, outside country, who have attended this webinar, this VCM in large numbers, more than 1,000 participants. I have registered themselves, and I'm quite confident that it will be a very enriching experience. I once again welcome all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. We would like to welcome CA Pranav Imani ji. Sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. So, before I make my opening remarks, so I would like to extend a big thank you for everyone here sitting here. This is a very important topic in our professional journeys going forward, and taking these initiatives will make a lot of change in all our professional careers, right? And Goel sir, Kaur ma'am, so everybody, thank you very much for the warm welcome. Happy to be here, and our my other professional colleagues whom I'm not able to see, very warm welcome to you all. Thank you for being here, being a part of it. So, so I have a deck that I would like to present. So, will someone be presenting, or can I present it myself? Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Yeah. Can you put it on presentation mode, please?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. So before going into our topic of BRSR, what is light, what is BRSR core, and all these things, I think first we need to understand why this is an important topic, why ESG has become such an important topic in all our business and professional discussions, right? So if you can move forward, please. Yeah. So when we look at the way ESG has evolved over the years, right? So there was a time when a company used to be measured only by way of its assets or bottom line or its operations. Now today we are at a place where the companies are not just looked at from what is the value that they are giving to a shareholder. The stakeholder has increased, right? So today we are talking about the consumers, the regulators, our media friends, investors, right, communities, and everybody, right? So here you can see a word called stakeholder capitalism. What does it mean, stakeholder capitalism? This showcases that exact movement of giving the profit or adding the value to a shareholder from how I'm benefiting as an organization. We are benefiting the stakeholders at large. So that is the stakeholder capitalism that we are dealing about right now. That is the reason there is such an importance given to ESG, not only in India, across the world. But one thing that we should all be proud about is that India is one of the pioneers, right? So even before anybody came up with the mandatory reportings, India, I think, is the first and foremost country which came up with BRSR reporting. So if you look at the sequence of the events, so after us, EU has made certain standards, CSRD standards mandatory. going forward, and US is yet to finalize its disclosures. UK is coming up. So after that, Australia, Singapore, all these people have made these reportings mandatory. So that way, India has taken a really, really important step, and they have taken it first, right? So this is a very important step in the whole business understanding that is there going forward. Now let us ask the question other way around. If I'm a business person, I'm doing a business. Okay, sustainability, I understand climate, shareholders, human capital and all these things. But why should we have ESG? I'm earning profits. I'm increasing the value of my assets. I'm building up my reserves. Why should I have it? Now, if you look at the way things are happening, now the consumers and regulators and everybody, they are not just looking at the bottom line. They are looking at how you are doing that business, how you are making that profit. So it's not just making profits, it's how you are making profits. That has become more and more important. So if you, I'm sure most of you would be following the news. So in the last couple of years in the international markets, there are at least two big IPOs, which were held back from going to the market because of certain issues of governance in their ESG spaces. And there is a very large company, because of certain backlash from communities, local communities, the way they are dealing with the local communities, they lost their funding, a very big funding. So these are all which are there in the public, right? So that is the reason ESG has become a very, very key component, a prominent item on every board meeting task, right? So almost all the listed companies, all the major companies, as on date, based for their board meetings, are having these discussions, right? Now, okay, fine. Now that is why the businesses have to cater to this. But why, as professionals, why should we, right? Why should we know about BRSR? Why should we know about ESG? Well, that is the question. The reason is we have been building trust in our societies by way of assurances that we are giving, helping the companies doing their financial reporting. Now, markets are looking not just about the financial reporting, but also with respect to the non financial reporting. And again, there should be somebody who should be able to do this heavy lifting, right? Again, when it comes to reporting, understanding the standards and assurance, our community has been one of the key member in uplifting the trust in the society. So from that point of view, it is important for us also to understand how the markets are moving, what is the expectation, to ensure that markets get the data, accurate data and credible data, right? Yeah, if we can move forward, please. Yeah. So what is ESG reporting? So ESG reporting, basically, what when we talk about ESG, there are three pillars, right? Environmental, social, and governance, right? How do I present this data? How do I present this data in such a way that it is usable by the person who is trying to read it, like investors or consumers or regulators, whoever it is? How can they perceive this data? Is it transparent enough? Is it enough to build trust, right? All these parameters will be considered when you are doing a ESG reporting, right? So why is this important? Like we have already discussed, it will help you in your fundings, it will help you retain talent, strong employee engagement. You will be defined by your brand, right? When you are doing all these good things with respect to environment, you are making commitments, you are achieving goals, you will be looked at as a brand differentiator. How is my brand different from others? Everybody is doing the same thing, but how am I different? This brand differentiation can be brought in by way of doing this reporting and showcasing what you're doing in a better way. Moving forward, yeah. So when we look at this ESG reporting across the world, right now, what we call it as the alphabet soup. There are many standards. Like, for example, when we look at financial accounting, we have IND-AS, we have IGAP, we have IFRS, US GAAP, right? All these things are there. In the same way, In the sustainability world also there are many, but now the market is consolidating, right? Initially there used to be CDP, TCFD, GRA, integrated reporting. Now ISSB has come up with two standards, where they have taken from all the TCFD, CDP, sustainability accounting standards code, and now they are trying to consolidate and make it one single platform for using and doing a sustainability reporting. In the same way, EU, like I said, has come up with certain standards, which are the CSRD, ESRS standards. There are 12 standards which will be applicable for them from FY25. So US is also trying to come up with certain disclosures which are going forward, right? Now, what about India? So this is all about the reporting which is done across the world. Now, what is that the India is doing? India market is doing. SEBI has come up with something called BRSR report. What is BRSR? BRSR is one place where all the three pillars related data can be presented, which will help people understand, right? Because the reason why it is understandable even for the global audience is that they have taken inspiration from GRI and SASB, and they have tried to come up with a good amount of framework so that it is a good starting point for all the companies to present their data. Okay, so now what we will do is, so this is just to set the context. Now we will move into actual BRSR and what is the evolution, what is the structure of BRSR, and when we are doing or when we are helping the companies do the BRSR reporting, how do we actually help them? Can we move forward, please? Yeah. So when we look at the evolution of BRSR, in 2009, MCA has come up with something called National Voluntary Guidelines, NVGs. So this was the initial intention was when the CSR came, what would be the basis for my CSR? How do I fulfill my obligations with respect to corporate social responsibility? For that, the basis that they have taken is the National Voluntary Guidelines. So in this National Voluntary Guidelines, they have spoken about human rights, business ethics, stakeholder engagement. They spoke about transparency and all these things. Now, based on this NVGs, they have created something called Business Responsibility Report. This was in 2012, where the first time they said top 100 market cap companies have to fill in the BRR and they have to incorporate it as a part of your annual report, right? So this is the starting point, and here also this is again based on NVGs. So NVGs are a bit more myopic in nature when you compare it with the current regulation, NGRBC regulations that we have, right? So in 2014, again, CSR is mandated and CSR rules came into force. Now they have mandated saying that if you remember, there is certain amount mandatorily to be spent and where this needs to be spent. All the basis was taken from these NVGs. So in 2015, the BRR initially in 2012 was mandatory only for 100 top listed companies, now has become mandatory for top 500 listed companies by market cap. And moving forward, they said they can do something like an integrated reporting. And in 2009, this is the actual start, and they have built it beautifully. From the National Voluntary Guidelines, they have moved to NGRBCs. NGRBC is nothing but National Guidance on Responsible Business Conduct. How is it different? What is the difference between my NVGs and NGRBCs? It's about the scope of coverage. When we are talking about NVGs primarily covered from a corporate social responsibility point of view. So it is a bit restricted. It did not talk about the entire business conduct. But they were talking about NGRBCs, they said how to do the entire business. Let us say, for example, human rights. As an example, when we are talking about human rights, they have taken human rights as a part of NVGs only for the CSR related activities. But when we are talking about human rights in NGRBCs, they've taken the entire human rights and said that not only to the CSR, but for the entire business conduct. That means your employees, communities, supply chain, value chain, customers, everybody, wherever, whoever you are dealing with, whoever are your partners, as a part of your business, for everyone this human rights should be applicable. So you need to ensure that human rights are protected, right? This is one example. Stakeholder engagement. Initially in NVGs, when they spoke about the stakeholder engagement, it is again limited to parties who are a part of social responsibility. But now it spoke about all the parties who are relevant for your business conduct, right? So based on these NGRBCs, what they did was they made this BRSR, but by 2020 they only made BRR mandatory for the top 1,000 companies. And in 2021, for the first time, they have introduced something called BRSR, Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting. Right now, what happened after that was phenomenal. Can we move forward, please? So after they have introduced in 2021 BRSR, from 22-23, from here on, the way Indian economy has moved with respect to sustainability is phenomenal, right? So in 2023, they said that for the top 1,000 companies, BRSR is mandatory. Immediately, July 12th, 2023, they came up with one more regulation, one more circular, which said that BRSR core, which is a addition. There are some questions which we'll talk about in the following slides, said that BRSR core has to be presented in your annual report, and also this has to be assured. And they have given a roadmap saying that by 23-24 top 150, and 24-25 250, 25-26 500, and 26-27 1000. So this roadmap has been given. And also as a part of the same, they said that top 250 companies by market cap also should include the value chain reporting for this BRSR core indicators. So for this BRSR core is 40 questions, roughly around 40 indicators. For this 40 questions, they have to collect the data from their value chain. Don't confuse your supply chain with value chain. Value chain is a very broader term. Value chain includes upstream and downstream as well. Okay, so they said 75% of your value by sales, 75% of value by purchases. From these parties, you need to get the data for BRSR core and start presenting it from the year 24-25. And this should be limited assured from 25-26. This is a significant movement, because nowhere across in the world has value chain reporting been made mandatory, nor is it being assured as of now. Even one of the mature economies like EU, they said that this will be done only at 28. So right now we are on a almost a very fast track for this, right? And when we spoke about the reasonable assurance, so board has been made responsible to ensure that necessary expertise is being brought in for doing the assurance. And to close the loop, what they did, now look at the whole evolution. They started with corporate social responsibility, moved to business responsibility reporting, and then sustainability reporting. Now reporting plus, first only reporting, second reporting plus assurance, third reporting plus assurance plus rating as well, right? So for a business to be incentivized, why I should do this reporting, why I should do good, why I should have goals and commitments, the answer is there. First they said, okay, you start reporting, and then they said you start getting assured. So let us say you got assured, but let us say there is some mismatches in your assurance reports. Then the business says, why do I care? Now you need to care because there are assurance ratings or ESG ratings for BRSR core, which will also come into picture, right? So that is the complete cycle. You need to do the things which are with respect to ESG, report it in the form of BRSR, and then get it assured in the form of BRSR code and get it rated. Right. So the entire circle is pretty important, not only from a business point of view, but as professionals to move forward in our professional life, this becomes a very, very important and relevant source. Right. Yeah. Can we move forward, please? Yeah. So this is just to give you a comparison of how things were changed between BRR and BRSR. So BRR was given in 2012, BRSR in 2021. So by 19 and 23, both for both top 1,000 company market cap companies, listed companies have been made it mandatory, right? And then the underlying guidelines. So this is the main change, right? NVGs to NGR basis. Somebody might ask, why should I know about these NVGs and NGR basis? One should be able to understand what is the basis of all these things. You cannot consider BRSR reporting as just a form filling exercise. You need to understand the essence. Imagine, let us say you are working on in days 109 or any other accounting standard. Let you don't understand the essence of it, right? Then how do you actually apply the standard? Substance over form. Whatever we have learned all these years is important for sustainability as well. Unless you understand where all these disclosures are coming from, we will not understand how to read the report or how the disclosures made by the companies or organizations are appropriate or not. Okay. And then of course the reporting primary values are a bit different. Here it is limited to only integrity and ethics, but then when we look at BRSR, it talks about accountability, a lot of governance related parameters, right? And then there are KPIs which are included across the industries and all these things, right? And how both the places it is an annual report, but BRSR there is a specific requirement that it has to be filed with the ministry as well. When we look at the disclosures, when we look at BRR is primarily focused on quantitative disclosures. But when you look at BRSR, when you go through the BRSRs, there is a lot of room for qualitative disclosures. It talks about what are the goals that you have taken, what are the milestones that you have achieved, what are the policies that you have, who is reviewing these policies, right? Whether you have done anything for your employees or communities, right? Have you done a life cycle assessment? So all these questions which are more qualitative in nature, which will give you an insight into how the company or the organization is moving forward. Do they have a vision with respect to sustainability or not? The essence, the soul of this sustainability journey is pretty much captured as a part of BRSR report. But BRR report, for a start, it was more quantitative, but it was useful for its own time, right? Yeah, can we move forward, please? Yeah. So this is not an exhaustive list, but these are certain indicators which were there, which are there in BRSR, but which were not there in the BRR. So from an environmental point of view, if you look at it, there is more detailing on GHG emissions, energy, water, waste, and all these things. When you look at social, things like labor practices, employee welfare, diversity and inclusion, continued community engagement, human rights. So there is a more detailed metrics which are available on all these indicators. And the same is the case with governance. Governance, when we look at BRR, it only used to talk about, what is the board, who are there on the board and all these things. Now, if you look at the governance related questions in BRSR, it is very elaborate. It talks about the policies and practices which are there. Is the board also getting, trainings or not? How are they ensuring the ethics and integrity? If there are any complaints or if there are any penalties, how are all these being dealt with? All these things are pretty much required in detail when we are talking in the BRSR. And materiality as a concept we will discuss in further slides, but it is to identify what are the key topics that a company should deal with. All these things were not there in BRR. All these things are new introductions, right? In order to ensure that whoever is reading these reports from a sustainability point of view also will understand how the business and sustainability are going hand in hand, right? So this is just to give you a bird's eye view of how the BRSR and BRR are, sorry, BRSR has evolved from BRR. So we'll just stay on this slide for a minute so that if anybody want to have a look at it, you can have a look at it. Now, one of the other things that has happened is when we are talking about BRSR, there are three things in BRSR. BRSR, the entire format, BRSR core, and BRSR Lite. Why should we know about it? When a company is making the disclosures, be it by way of regulation or be it suo moto to showcase their sustainability journey, one has to understand what these are. to tell them what should be used, right? So when we talk about the BRSR, the whole BRSR is considered like a mother standard or mother framework, from which we can trace BRSR core related indicators very specifically and BRSR light related indicators. So when we talk about core, what SEBI has done is they said, okay, in BRSR, there are totally 145 questions. Out of these 145 questions, these 40 questions, there are 40 questions which they have identified and said that these are very important. These needs to be also assured. And these are the items which will showcase the primary journey of all the organizations. It will speak about GHG emissions, energy, water, diversity. It will talk about job creation. It will talk about related party transactions. All these things will be spoken about in BRSR core. So BRSR core as a framework will give you a lot more detailing into how the entity is looking at various indicators at a really high level of high level of detailing. But BRSR core is a subset of BRSR, right? So all these listed companies who are disclosing their ESG journey as a part of the BRSR will have these core indicators clubbed into it. Now, why are these BRSR core indicators to be identified specifically? Because these are the indicators on which assurance has to be done, right? You don't need to do the assure, get the assure. The organization does not need to get the assurance for all the 145 questions. They need to get out of this 145, there are 40 questions which are identified by SEBI on which reasonable assurance has to be taken by all these organizations, right? So this will of course is divided into all the three pillars: environment, social, and governance as well. Okay. Now, what is BRSR Lite? So what MCA has done is that from the BRSR they have taken some questions. So this will generally be can be used, not will. This will generally be used by companies who are of certain amount of size, where they know that the entire BRSR will not make sense for them because the level of data maturity or the level of operations are not really high, mainly for the private limited companies and all. For all these companies, they would still, let us say, they want to still go ahead and include something in their annual reports to showcase their ESG. Now, why do they want to do it? Because even though they are private companies, they would still be going into the market and doing business, right? So the business, like we initially discussed, are requiring the ESG parameters to be disclosed. So as a start, what MCA did was they have taken some of the questions from BRSR and they said that, okay, when this is BRSR light, you can use this, so that it will help you as a starting point for disclosing various indicators, right? So when someone has to make a choice or asking you to help them make a choice based on whether I should go for the entire BRSR reporting. See, one thing, please be very clear. If SEBI has mandated, as SEBI has mandated for the top 1,000 companies, BRSR has to be done, the entire BRSR has to be done. There is no choice there. The choice is for the others who are not mandatorily required to be done. So for them, what you can do, you can, based on their operations, level of maturity of their sustainability, and the data management, keeping all these parameters in mind, you can see whether they can start with BRSR Lite, move to core, and then probably the entire BRSR. So how will this help? This will help them create that sustainability journey. This will help them go forward in their reporting process, so that they'll have time to catch up to the highest matured level of sustainability reporting. Okay. Yeah. Can we move forward, please? Yeah. So if you look at BRSR Lite, so these are the, again, the format in which the whole BRSR, they have still kept it intact, saying that what is just general disclosures, management process disclosures, and then principal based disclosures. But the amount of data that need to be disclosed is pretty much a very small subset. Like for example, general disclosures, they just need the company details, and top three products, what are the business operation including subsidiaries, associates, what are the CSR details. And when we talk about the management process and disclosures, do they have any stakeholder engagement? If so, what is the kind of stakeholder engagement? Do they have any governance structure with respect to sustainability? That means, is there anybody in the board who is overseeing things? Is there a committee in place, or who is actually looking at it? And policy framework, do they have relevant policies or not? What are the goals and target? Let us say somebody said we want to achieve net zero, or somebody said we want to give our employees 100% training for upskilling, right? Or somebody said that on our board diversity we want to make it 50-50, or something like it. Any goals and targets can be there. So what are the goals and targets? And of course, from a principal level, each principal, they have reduced the number of questions and said these are the questions that needs to be answered as a part of the uh, disclosures in section C. So the BRSR Lite, like I said, will give you a overarching framework to start your reporting process. And you start from here and you go at a complete BRSR level, so that it will help the company to pace its own sustainability journey. Okay. Yeah, let's move forward, please. Yeah, again, these are some examples where the BRSR, when we compare with BRSR Lite, these are certain things which are the areas which are not present in BRSR Lite. So let us say, for example, diversity inclusion. So diversity inclusion, it very specifically, BRSR talks about gender diversity, board diversity, inclusion policies, and all these things. But BRSR Lite doesn't really ask at such a level of detailing. It just asks how many employees you have, male female ratio. It's a bit more simpler. The same way supply chain management. Supply chain management is not really dealt at length with in BRSR Lite. But if you go to BRSR, there are lot of indicators which talk about sustainable supply chain. Do you have a diversity? Do you have responsible supply chain practices? Do you have policies in place? Do you do the audits for sustainable supply chain? So there's a lot of detailing that is required as a part of the complete BRSR. In the same way, engagement. Stakeholder engagement, it doesn't really talk in detail. They just ask you whether there is any stakeholder engagement or not and how you are doing it. But here, right, when you're dealing with BRSR, it really goes into a detailing, saying that how it is done, what is the mechanism, how are the decisions that you are taking getting integrated as a part of your whole sustainability journey, right? So again, we will be on this slide for another 30 seconds so that you can have a look at what are the kind of things that BRSR has that BRSR Lite doesn't have. So in terms of numbers, if we have to speak, let us say BRSR has somewhere around 145 questions. BRSR Lite might have somewhere around 70 questions, somewhere around 60 to 70 questions, I suppose. Yeah. So now what I have done is I tried to just portray what are the items that are very specifically there as a part of BRSR core. Why is this important? Like I said, BRSR core are the items on which you need to get, rather the organization should get their assurance done, but that too at a reasonable assurance level. What is reasonable assurance? Yeah, it's more or less equal to the rigor at which you do the year-end audit, right? So it is important that we know what are the indicators that are there as a part of this BRSR core, right? First is greenhouse gas emissions and other air emissions. In this, they talk about scope 1 and scope 2. I don't think scope 3 is there, so I'm sorry for that. That's a mistake. Scope 3 is not there. Scope 1 and scope 2 GHG emissions is there, and they talk about the intensities as well, right? What is intensity? What is my total scope 1 emission? What is my scope 2 emission divided by my total turnover, divided by my total output, right? With respect to water withdrawal, discharge, and consumption need to be included. Energy, same, renewable and non-renewable. And can you move forward, please? With respect to circularity, total waste generated, recovered, recycled, and total waste disposed by nature of disposed method. So if you see one thing in all these four, GHG, energy, water, waste. All these things, one thing is common, that in all the places the intensity ratios have to be included. That means the company has to tell a per rupee of sale that they are making, how much are they generating. Why is this important? You cannot expect as a reader that, if let us say somebody says that they have an emissions of 10 million tons of carbon, CO2, right? If that is the case, how does it make sense to the reader? In order for it to make sense to the reader and to understand how this should be understood, what they did was make it an intensity ratio. For 1 rupee of your turnover, how much is the carbon dioxide that you are emitting? Now what you can do, one, as a reader, as a professional, you can compare it with your previous year. Two, when you look at the other players in the industry, you can again see per rupee how much is the carbon, or how much is the waste, how much is the water consumption that is there. So this will give a proper platform for somebody to assess whether the companies, whoever are doing the business, are doing the business in a responsible way or not. Okay, so that is the reason they have included all these intensities, because a bare value on the face of it saying that okay fine, this company is using 1 million liters, or they are dumping so many tons of waste. As a non sustainability professional, how will anybody has to understand that? So they have brought in these concepts of intensity. This is a beautiful concept, right? So these are the four questions which are there on the environment side. And when we talk about the social side, there are three more things. One, they spoke about how much are you spending on your employees as a percentage of your total revenue. Now again, see what they did. The reason all these ratios are being put in here, understand, sure that there is a comparability, not just between this company for this year and previous year, but with various industries, right? So this will give you a reasonable insight into how these companies are doing the business. So for 1 rupee of sale that I am doing, how much am I actually spending on the employees other than the salaries, right? It's a great initiative to know that how much these people are actually spending, giving back to the employees who are actually helping them create these profits. Next, enabling gender diversity. Again, gross wages paid to female employees as a percentage of total wages paid by the entity. Now, let us say a company says that my diversity ratio is 60-40 or 50-50 in favor of males, 60 male, 40 female. But that is not an indicator. When can you say that there is an equitable distribution? When you look at your diversity along with the amounts that are being paid. If let us say on an overall level you are saying that from number perspective, number of people perspective, 60 employees are male and 40 employees are female, but when you look at the ratio of the wages, it showcases that 80% is to male and 20% is to female. That essentially shows that there is a difference. Then one has to look at why the female colleagues are not getting into the higher positions, or why is there an inequitable distribution of wages. So all these questions will arise, and the moment all these things come into the report, organizations will become more and more cautious on how to decrease these issues, right? So going forward, enabling inclusive development. Now here they said how much is being sourced from the MSMEs, or how many jobs are you creating in the smaller towns. So all these things again are so important for understanding how these businesses are doing. And then they spoke about fairness in engaging with customers and supplies. They said in how many days are you actually making the payments to the vendors. If you look at the first point, that's a very interesting point. They said that instances involving loss or breach of data of customers as a percentage of total data breaches or cybersecurity events, right? If you look at the global trends, cyber attacks have been one of the key issues that businesses are facing. Now they said that customer data on today's date, where aggregation business, customer retailing has become such a big business, they started asking questions around how much are the breaches and whether the customer data is getting protected or not, right? And then last but not the least, openness of business. How much are you dealing with your related parties? How much are you dealing with only traders or dealers and related parties? So this will give you an insight of how open the businesses are, how much they are dealing with only dealers and all these things. Are they putting middlemen? And all these things will be considered for the purpose of your BRSR core reporting. Now, on the top of it, assurance for this reporting. Once this is assured, now this data will go for rating as well. Okay, so that is the reason why it is very important that we need to understand what are the principal differences between BRSR, BRSR core, and BRSR Lite. Because the way you understand the business, the way you help them in their sustainability journey and tell them how, what, when these reportings have to be made will make a significant impact. Yeah, if we can move forward, please. Yeah. Now, what we will do is in the next two sections, we will try to understand how BRSR is structured and what are the actual requirements of all this BRSR. Okay. So just give me a moment. Yeah. So at the start, we spoke about NGRBCs, right? So there are nine NGRBCs which have been issued, and based on these there are NGRBCs which are issued based on which nine principles have been categorized by SEBI. So if you look at the bottom of the table, there are nine principles. One is transparent and accountable business, sustainable goods and services, employee well-being, stakeholder management, human rights, environment, policy advocacy, inclusive growth, and value to customers. So what they did was all these ESG related questions they have bifurcated into all these nine principles. So, Shweta, should we take the questions all at the same time at last, please? Will that be okay?
So we can take in between as well if it's okay with you.
Yeah, I'm okay. So the question from the participant is CSR a part of ESG? Difference between ESG and BRSR. Good. So CSR being a part of ESG, it will be a subset eventually, because what will happen is as a part of CSR, if you are doing something good for the community or well-being of anybody else, so those things will be reported as a part of it. But ESG is a really broader framework. CSR, when compared to ESG, will be a very smaller piece, because CSR covers mainly from the how do you how you are dealing your corporate social responsibility, mainly from the community's point of view, or there are many subsets where you can actually spend your money in these things. But when you look at ESG, it is not just for the purpose of the communities or anybody else, but the business conduct as such, how this thing has to be done. Now the second question is, what is the difference between ESG and BRSR? Okay, so consider ESG as the entire ocean, right? Environment, social, and governance. There is no limit to it, right? Whatever comes in, everything will be there. But BRSR is a format, a framework which is given by SEBI so as to capture this ESG data in a more presentable and understandable manner, right? So BRSR is a framework for doing your reporting. ESG is a concept in itself. How do I do a sustainable business? For this, whatever parameters are there, doing a sustainable business, these are categorized into ESG. I hope that answers. Is AI a limitation if we talk about as per sustainability point of view? See, AI, I don't think it is fair to comment at this point in time to say that it is a limitation. because businesses are changing, AI is changing a lot. But AI as such, if used in a proper way, will help us a lot in addressing a lot of issues. Probably we will hope that AI can come up with ideas which we are not able to deal with a lot of issues around there. So right now it is probably not a complete right time, and also I'm not an AI expert as such. But then I would look at everything as an opportunity rather than a limitation. So the next question is, what is the difference in reasonable assurance and limited assurance? Okay, so I'll put it a bit more bluntly so that it will be easily understandable. If let us say you are doing a limited review, you will do only limited procedures like inquiry procedures, analytical procedures, and probably some kind of testing. But when you're doing your year-end audit, you will do the entire process understanding, controls understanding. You will do a lot of sampling, right? And everything, presentation, disclosure, checking, everything is there, right? So this is the primary difference between your limited assurance and reasonable assurance. Limited assurance, it is more of a negative assurance. So nothing has come to my attention. But reasonable assurance, you actually say that this is fair. Are there guidelines on how to calculate turnover adjusted fee for PPP? Yes. So in the BRSR core framework, which is given on July 12th, 2023, there is an annexure which is given, annexure 1. So this annexure 1 has BRSR core indicators along with the guidance on how the PPP adjustment has to be done. Rather, for other indicators also, they're given this guidance. Yes, they did. Please elaborate on openness of business. So okay, so I'll take it up that one. Before that, so if we can just move back on the slide, please, couple of slides. Yeah, so openness of business, no, this one. Yeah, openness of business, there are two questions. One talks about concentration of purchase and sales with trading houses, dealers, and related parties. That means how much of your sale or how much of your purchase is with the trading houses and dealers. That means not directly to the ultimate party. Let us say when you're doing a sale, how much are you doing it through the middleman? In the same way, purchases, how much are you dealing with the purchases with the middleman rather than the final party, and also with the related parties. So in that fashion, you need to present the ratios. And also, of course, loans and advances and investments with related parties. So this is the question which is asked. The reason why it is that the question is, are you masking the business? Like for example, something like a GHG emission scope 3 is there, right? Scope 3, when you're looking at it, you go and capture the data for your own suppliers. If you are only dealing with the dealer, probably you will not have the entire GHG emission. If you buy it from an OEM, probably your scope 3 will be a bit higher. So something, are these things getting masked? So that would be the intention of that question. Yeah, we can move forward. Is there any change in clause 4 of principle 8 with respect to sourcing of suppliers? Yeah, neighboring districts has been taken away. That question is no longer applicable. What tools clients are using to capture and report BRSR reporting? Now it is now there is nothing standardized right now. Some people are using some databases which are internally there, some Excel sheets, and there are some databases which are free flowing in the market. Right now there is no standardized database, but everybody is trying to mature, because understand one thing, you cannot expect a miracle overnight. People are having that journey right now. What are the leadership questions that I'll be able to answer in a couple of slides. There is a specific slide on that. BRSR is mandatory for top 1,000 companies, listed companies in India as of now. My question is it applicable to foreign companies? No, as of now it is not. CB has not provided any guidance on newly introduced, especially, yes, trading houses. The definition as such is not given, but trading houses generally means the middlemen, the dealers. So whenever there is a company for whom either you're doing an assurance or helping them report, define the term trading houses as a part of the report itself, the basis on which you have taken. Most of them are taking it as like a dealer, whoever is the middleman that there is, because there is no specific guidance or any clear definition with respect to trading houses. Okay. Difference between integrated report and BRSR. So integrated report as such is something which is under a standard called or framework called IIRC. So there are certain relevant definitions, requirements which are given in IIRC. Just to give you an overview, IIRC in many of the annual reports you might have read manufacturing capital, finance capital, or people capital and all these things, right? And then they talk about integrating the business strategy with the sustainability. That is integrated reporting. But BRSR is very specific. There is a set format. It is like our Caro. There are set of 145 questions. These 145 questions has to be answered. So that's the difference between integrated report and BRSR. Is I'm sorry. Is there a framework for BRSR assurance? Yes. SSAE 3000 and 3410 are the ones which are there, and I think our institute is trying to come up with a new standard as well, but these are the ones which are currently in place. How are GHG emissions calculated for reporting for different sectors? See, that is a very what do we call, very overarching question. I don't think we'll be able to answer, not at least in the next 1 hour. So GHG emissions, you need to first look at scope one, you need to define. So I'll just give you a broad answer, probably in 30 seconds. First, GHG emissions, you need to understand from the company's point of view, what are the emissions in scope one, scope two, and scope three. Scope one, what are the kind of fuels that they are using and which places, and how they are procuring all these things. And then scope two, you need to look at their electricity consumption and what is the breakup between their non-renewable and renewable. And once you get this data, there are conversion factors by way of either DEFRA or IPCC, and then you can use these conversion factors to go for the GHG emissions. So if you are going for GHG emission calculation, ensure that the company has an inventory of what these emissions are, where these emissions are coming from. Can you elaborate on life cycle assessment, how to work on the same and how to present the same? See, life cycle assessment, again, GHG protocol, they have a standard with respect to life cycle assessment. Like I said, again, GHG emissions, the same way life cycle assessment is something which is a very vast subject. But just to give you an overview again, life cycle assessment, it is called either cradle to gate approach or cradle to grave approach. That means from the start, let us say somebody is manufacturing a battery. From the start of that battery getting mined for the raw materials till the time, again, it goes either into some kind of wastage pits or something like that. From start to end, how much are the emissions which are happening? So this is the overarching understanding of life cycle assessment, but there is a brilliant standard which is issued by GHG protocol. So you might want to have a look at it and how to present the same. So if at least in BRSR, there's a very specific question which is there with respect to life cycle assessment. So life cycle assessment is generally done at a product or a service level. Once you do it at a product or service level, the same data can be included as a part of your BRSR reporting. I'm hoping, Shweta, these questions are answered.
Yes, sir. Majority of them are answered. We can continue with your session.
Thank you. Yeah. Like I said, so BRSR as such has 145 questions, and it is bifurcated into various sections. And there is something called, somebody has already asked, what is a leadership indicator? We will talk about it. But then what they have done is that if you look at BRSR, it has been framed very beautifully. So the first section, section A, it will talk about the company related details, the sale, what are the customer, how many employees are there. So basic understanding of the company you will get when you read the section A of the BRSR report. Section B of the BRSR report will talk about the policies, what are your milestones, who is looking after these policies, what have you achieved, and all these things. So it basically talks about the, at an organizational level, how is it, whether they have a policy framework, whether there is a governance framework. So this is at a very overall level. Then it goes into section C, right? Section C, principle wise, again they said what are the questions, and for each question they have asked what is the data that is required. So understanding of the company, what is the governance structure, and then you talk about each and every principle. So that is the way BRSR has been shaped. Okay, so can we move forward, please? Yeah. So what are the things that you need to keep in mind when you're helping BRSR doing an assurance? One, see these BRSR reporting, like I said, the inspiration has been taken from GRI and Sustainability Accounting Standards for SASB, right? So this will help you ensure that there is a structured approach in which you are presenting the data. There is a consistency, there is a comparability, right? So when we spoke about BRSR code, that is the very reason I explained in detail, try to explain in detail why this is important and how this will help not only you, everybody to understand the data. Okay. Second is data collection verification. Somebody has raised a very valid question. How are this data is getting managed? If you look at financial audits, the data is getting captured, Tally, Zoho, SAP, Oracle. There are set parameters, right? There are set databases, how I can capture this data. But ESG is something where things are progressing now. It has not reached a maturity level where you will have set databases. So what is happening is people are trying to see if it is respect to related parties or purchases or sales HR data, generally it will flow from again from your financial data. But environmental indicators, people are trying to maintain Excel sheets and trying to get control over it, but this is something which is still in the preparation, right? So when you are talking to organizations with respect to doing this reports or assurances, be very very careful, right? Because these are not set databases, we don't know how this data is flowing. So you need to first get an understanding of how people are getting this data, how they are collecting the data, and why they believe that this is complete, why do they believe that this is verifiable, whether this is verifiable or not. Let us say somebody says that in this plant so many liters of water has been consumed, but there is no backup. How do you know, right? Let us say they say that no, we have water flow meters, we should be able to trace it to the water flow meters, but let us say those water flow meters are not calibrated. How will you rely on the data, right? So all these things have to be really kept in mind when we are doing the BRSR reporting or the assurance person. And then reporting scope and materiality. So this reporting scope and materiality is a very important topic, which in the next slides we will talk about. So reporting scope talks about, let us say there is a company, they have 10 plants and two or three subsidiaries, whether all the data is getting captured or not. What is the scope of the data? Have I defined the scope? And whether the data that is getting published in the report is consistent across. Let us say the company says that no, for HR data, because it is more favorable for me, I'll publish consolidated data, but for GHG emissions and energy and waste, because it is not favorable to me, I'll do only the data at a standalone level. It will not make sense, right? There is no consistency in the data then, right? And let us say the company is only an investment company, all the manufacturing and everything is in the subsidiaries. Now the company is saying I'll do only standalone reporting. For what fun, right? So there is no accountability there, there is no actual responsible business conduct there, right? So all these things have to be kept in mind when you are going forward and advising a client to say that what is the scope of the data that I need to consider, what is materiality, what are my material indicators, right? So can we move forward, please? Yeah. So like I said, this is the basic structure, BRSR. Section A is general disclosures, which we will talk in very much more detail. Section B, again, we'll talk in more detail with respect to management and performance disclosures. Section C. Section C is a very important part, right? All the qualitative and quantitative data that is going to flow will be part of your section C, right? And there are two parts to it, essential and leadership indicators in this. And what are these? Please move forward. Yeah, I think you can just move forward. One more slide. Yeah. So when we are talking about essential, no, go back one slide, please. Yeah. When we are talking about essential indicators are in the nature of mandatory disclosures. Simple. There is no exemption there. If there are 90 questions which says that these are essential indicators, the company, irrespective of the data, whether it is material, not material, doesn't matter, they have to include that data. They have to answer that question. The answer might be yes, no, not applicable, whatever it could be, but it has to be answered. Right? These are all mandatory things, like how many trainings are being given, what is the enrollment data, what is the social impact, and all these things. These are all mandatory indicators. And then there are leadership indicators. What are leadership indicators? Leadership indicators are those which are right now voluntary in nature. And you can ask, why should SEBI have leadership? Either they can make it mandatory or not have that question at all. See, leadership indicator, by the virtue of the name, it actually indicates these are the indicators which will help them assess the leadership level of the company. There might be some companies who are doing this sustainability journey from a very long back, right? If they are doing so, they might be market leaders. They would want to disclose certain things even though they are not mandatory, which will showcase the maturity of the company from a sustainability point of view, right? For example, life cycle assessment is not mandatory in general, but there are many companies who are saying that no, we want to do the life cycle assessment. We want to tell the consumer, in producing this particular product or in delivering this particular service, how much emission am I doing? I want to give that extra data. I want to showcase that we are doing more responsibly. Or somebody is saying, I want to give the scope 3 data. Scope 3's data right now is not an essential indicator. It is a leadership indicator. Why do I need to give scope 3? Because when I'm saying that I'm producing a particular product, it is not just mine. Whatever are whoever are my business partners, I am going to take responsibility for that also. I want to showcase that as well. So that is the difference between essential and leadership. So as the company grows in its sustainability maturity, they'll always move from essential to leadership indicators. Yeah. Move forward, please. Yeah. So now what we will do is for section A and section B, we will deep dive a bit more on each question level. And I would like to address there are certain really critical things which needs to be kept in mind when we are dealing with or helping the organizations in doing this BRSR reporting. You can move forward. Yeah. So these are the first question as a part of the general disclosures. So if you look at it, all the 15, 1 to 13, sorry, 1 to 12 are more or less standard. It talks about SIN number, name of the entity, year of incorporation. So all these are pretty much standard. Look at the 13th question. It talks about the reporting boundary. What do you mean by reporting boundary? Reporting boundary is whether this is a standalone or consolidated, right? SEBI doesn't give you a choice to go somewhere in between. It says either you go on a standalone basis or on a consolidated basis, and the entire report that you are publishing for BRSR has to be consistent. It has to be either standalone data or consolidated data, right? Choosing this boundary is very, very important. And then 14th is name of the assurance provider. So if let us say even before it becomes mandatory, somebody is trying to get an assurance done for their non-financial data, that can be given. And what is the type of assurance? We spoke about limited and reasonable. So that will be a part of your question number 15, right? So, but then keep in your mind very, very clearly, reporting boundary is very important because this tells what is the data that is included. You cannot have an organization claiming that consolidated basis is what is my reporting boundary, and but for some indicators they are saying that this is standalone data, right? That is very much an inconsistency. Yeah, move forward, please. Yeah. So next, it talks about the products. What are the kind of products that the company is manufacturing? First is with respect to description of the activity. So question number 16, the basis for this will be MGT 7. Based on MGT 7, whatever are the activities that the company has, that has to be disclosed. And products and services sold, you have to ensure in both these questions that 90% of the turnover is getting covered as a part of the disclosure here. Okay. And then third is with respect to operations. How many plants, how many offices do they have, national, international, and what are the markets served? What is the percentage of turnover in exports, and what is the nature of customers that I have? Right? Unless you understand what is the nature of customers, you will not understand how this read this report, right? So there will be a big difference in the way you are dealing with when you are talking about a, let's say, aggregator business to a proper manufacturing business. So that is the reason one has to know what are the type of customers they have. So this is all to give you a brief on what is the company, what is my understanding of this company, what are they doing, where are they located, who are the people whom they are serving. So from every point of view, these three questions will help you understand the what is the type of the company that you are dealing with. Yeah, move forward please. Next is on the employee data. So the employee data, you need to give the bifurcation between male and female for permanent, non-permanent employees, and permanent and other than permanent workers. So there is a guidance note which is issued on this BRSR reporting, where it talks about who is an employee and who is a worker, right? So based on the employees as a workers act, factories act and all, there is a bifurcation: who should be considered as worker, who should be permanent, who should be other than permanent, right? Let us say, for example, you need to do a bifurcation between who is permanent, who is not permanent. Anybody who has been recruited and paid for a limited period or specific period of time or a specific task, those all people will be considered as permanent. Other than this, whoever are there will be considered as other than permanent. Let us say the company is getting a third party to provide some workers, so that will be considered as other than permanent. So when you're looking at this data, one has to ensure that the company has this data bifurcation between who are the employees, who are the workers, who are the permanent ones, who are the non-permanent ones, and then they'll have to give the year end data. And one more bifurcation in this is it will ask about the differently abled person, right? So again, there is an act which governs differently abled employees. So generally there will be data which will be maintained saying that how many male and how many female are there for this. Okay. So the next question is with respect to board of directors and key management personnel. So board of directors, we know, because it will already be a part of your annual report. So the data is something which can flow easily. Again, key managerial personnel, key management personnel, the definition goes back to Companies Act. Again, this is something which is set and which most of us know how this needs to be dealt with, right? Because when you look at your related party, when you look at the annual report of any company, you will straight away have the details of this board of directors and key managerial person. Okay, on that basis, you need to provide the data of number and percentage of female board, female directors on the board, and in the key managerial person, and that percentage has to be showcased here, right? And the next question is, so this is here is a tricky one, because here the data is required for 3 years, not even for 2 years. So they are trying to understand the turnover rate between permanent employees, permanent workers, male and female. What is the turnover rate for the last 3 years? Okay, so how do I get the turnover? Total people who left during the year divided by average employees. How do I get the average employees? Opening plus closing by 2. Very simple. So again, this is all a part of the guidance note which is there. So all these formulas have been very clearly given. How do I compute the turnover rate? Right? Levers divided by average employees. For average employees, opening plus closing divided by 2. Very simple. So based on that, you will get the turnover rate for male permanent employees and workers, female permanent employees and workers. All this data is there. Okay. One thing, please keep in mind: just because data is not there, don't put some figure out there, or let the management put some figure out there. Okay. In the recent FAQ which is released by SEBI, this is one of the observations which is made by SEBI. in the last year's report that people are putting consolidated figures in the place of percentages. They are putting numbers. So be very careful and mindful when you are helping the clients, either by way of reporting or assurance, whether the amount or the percentage which is disclosed there belongs there or not. Okay, these are the initial years. So again, like I said, things are not matured enough, so you need to be a bit more cautious when you are helping the companies attend to these things. Yeah, go forward, please. Can you move forward, please? Hello, I'm audible.
Yes, sir, we are doing.
Okay, okay.
Sir, we are sharing the screen again.
No problem.
Sir, done.
Wonderful. So next is with respect to holding subsidiary, associate companies and joint ventures. Again, here the definitions are in line with the Companies Act. Okay. So why am I stressing this? If there is any inconsistency between the way you are dealing with it in India's versus what is there in the Companies Act is going to prevail. Okay. So all this data has to be included by way of the bifurcation from a Companies Act point of view. Okay. So one of the key things is the last column in this. That is the interesting part. Does the entity indicated in column A participated in the business responsibility initiatives or not? Okay, that is a very important point, right? So let us say the company doesn't have data around their subsidiaries or joint ventures. They should not go ahead and say that just yes. They have to be very cautious on how they are going to fill up this one. Okay. Next is on CSR details. Again, this is more or less straightforward because this is a number which flows from your financial statements. And last but not the least, in this section, transparency and disclosure of compliances. Are there any grievances? How is the management recording these grievances? And how are these getting reported here? Right? So if you look at here, in the first, they said what are the different categories of stakeholders that are there: communities, investors, shareholders, employees and workers, customers, value chain partners, and others. And in the second column, they asked, is there a grievance redressal mechanism in place? And if yes, provide the link. Right? Every company more or less will have grievance redressal mechanisms for their investors and shareholders and employees. This is in general, they'll have it. Okay. But ensure that if they are saying yes for others, that the policy is actually in place. Okay. One of the other things, if there is a policy which is attached in their website, ensure that the link is given to that particular page. Believe me, this is an observation by SEBI. They said that for all the policies, companies are giving the link of their website. They are not taking that website to the particular policy. So that page has to be specifically clearly attached here. Okay, the links have to be appropriately attached. Now, why is this important? The question is, how do I know as an insurance provider or a person who is doing the reporting that the number of the complaints that are given by the organization to disclose are appropriate or not? Because nobody wants to be showing themselves in a bad light, right? So this is one of the more very vulnerable questions. So one has to be very clear on how these things are coming up into the report, right? How your data is flowing, whether the data is complete or not, and all these things have to be looked at, right? And for example, let us say there are certain things like shareholders and investors. Generally, there will be something in NSE where you can see that what are the grievances which are raised by various shareholders and investors, and you can take that data from there. That is something which will be straightforward available. But you still need to understand how this is data is getting accumulated for others like communities or customers or employees. There will be internal. Nowadays what happens is, for customers there will be WhatsApp, there will be Insta, right? There will be something on their website, there will be a Hotmail ID, there will be a phone number which will be available. So whether the company is actually consolidating all these and getting into one place or not, that will become a challenge here. So one has to be very clear and their understanding first of how these complaints are getting incorporated. Okay, and then whether these are getting resolved or not. And how do we know whether these are resolved or not? So again, you need to get that business understanding. Okay, and ensure that the appropriate data is being filled. Again, if you see here, this is 2 year data, not 1 year. If you look at the employees, it is generally 1 year, other than for the turnover, which is 3 years. Here again, transparency disclosures for the grievance, 2 years has to be given. Okay, go forward please. Hmm. So materiality. So this is the topic which we spoke about a bit earlier. Materiality. What are the material items? So if you look at ESG, there will be more than 60, 70 indicators, starting from climate risk or biodiversity risk or something, marine risk, and all these things, some 20, 30 in each of the pillars. But can a business deal with all of these things at the same time? Point number one, are these all relevant for the business or not? It might not be, right? For example, if you take a manufacturing entity, for them probably greenhouse gas emissions, climate change will be a bit of more importance than uh, something like a uh, employee related, social related. But probably for a company where the employees are the primary people, let us say somebody is running a call center, for them probably GHG emissions is not so relevant. For them, employee related is more relevant. So the companies have to make a materiality assessment. Again, materiality assessment, there is no clear guidance which is given in BRSR with respect to materiality assessment. What we can do is, in GRA, there is a very specific framework of how this materiality assessment has to be done. From there, you can borrow it. And then the company has to do a stakeholder engagement and identify what are the material items, and then fill each one of it. What is the material item? Indicate whether this is a risk or an opportunity. Probably cyber risk is a risk for a normal company, but let us say the company is in the business of cyber security. Probably for them this might be an opportunity, right? So based on the business understanding, one has to see whether this is a risk or an opportunity. And then rationale for identifying. Rationale here means, what is the impact of this risk, what is the positive impact of this opportunity, that has to be presented here. And in case of risk, approach to mitigate. How is the company trying to deal with these risks? That is something which has to be shown here. And last column, with respect to financial implications. There are very less companies across the world who has a financial implication, because it will involve a significant amount of effort to understand whether this risk, how much impact will it have on the financial statement, right? So right now, I don't think many companies are here. So try to focus on the first 5 columns to see how the management has identified. How did they identify the material indicators first, and whether this is a risk or an opportunity? How is this impacting, and how is this getting mitigated? Let us say they say that climate change is a risk. Then you need to understand in the fourth column, how is this impacting your business? Let us say they say that, okay, fine. Oh, yeah, sure. I'll just come to that. Let me just complete this one. No, go back, please. Yeah. How is this risk getting mitigated? All these things have to be clearly mentioned as a part of this one. Okay. There are only some more slides, so I would like to complete those slides. After that, I'll answer these questions. Yeah, go ahead, please. Yeah. So, like I said, A is more from understanding how the business is, what are the operations, what are the sustainability related material items, and all these things. Section B is primarily policy driven. Okay, you need to understand for all these principles which we have mentioned earlier slides whether the company has policies or not, whether the company have identified policies, whether they have incorporated policies. All these policies have to be there as a part of their website, and all these links have to be given. Okay, and it also goes ahead and asks whether these policies are being extended to the value chain partners or not. If yes, yes. Sometimes it may not be. Let us say there is something with respect to equal opportunity. Equal opportunity policy may be more relevant for your for the company's own employees rather than the value chain, right? So it has to mention specifically whether it is applicable for the value chain partners or not. And then it talks about whether there are any certifications. Question number 5 is very important. Specific commitments and goals and targets set by the company and the defined timelines. Let us say some companies have taken, like I said earlier, probably carbon neutrality or net zero or something else. Right? Or somebody said that all my employees or all my value chain partners will have EV vehicles. Right? So these are the specific goals. Under each principle, are there any goals that are taken by the company? What is the timeline and what have they achieved? That is in question number 6. And it goes on to ask, okay, fine, you are saying that there are these 10 policies or 9 policies which are there with the company. Who is looking after these policies? Are they reviewing it on a timely basis? Okay, whether these policies are actually getting implemented or not. Let us say you are saying for 6 principles there are policies, but for for 3 principles policies are not there. Then what is the reason that there are no policies? Okay, and then it goes on to ask, who is the one who is in charge for all these things? Right? Is there a committee? Is there a person who is going to sign off on all the sustainability? Right? So in that way, this section B covers in a very comprehensive way all the requirements from a governance point of view. The crux of it is, who is the person in charge? Is there a policy? Is this policy being reviewed? Is this policy being implemented? So this section is more relevant from a policy standpoint. Okay, can we move forward, please? Yeah, so this is just to tell you how policies are generally done. So there should be a problem statement, and then there will be analysis, and then there will be strategy, how this has to be incorporated into the business, policy enactment, implementation. Again, you go ahead and every time review if you see if there is any policy or gap in that. Yeah, move forward, please. So this is just to give you a outline. So again, this is pretty much illustrative in nature. These are not complete list. This is just to give you an understanding of what are the kind of policies that are generally required as a part of your BRSR reporting under the 9 principles. Please, let's stay on this slide for 30 seconds and have a look at it. Okay, let's move forward. And also one of the questions in section B is with respect to trainings, whether there are any trainings which are being given to the employees board and KMP and all these things. So these are certain items which probably you might want to keep in mind when you're having a discussion with your organizations to see what are the things that are there. So it can be training materials, workshop seminars, certification programs, online courses. All these things qualify for being a training. So one has to ensure that the organizations are maintaining the records of the trainings appropriately to ensure that the reporting is done accurately. Okay, So I'll just take the questions. So with this, I think I've completed section A and section B. So if there are any more questions, please feel free to post. So I'll start just answering the question. Number of days in accounts payable, whether the above question is applicable to banking sector. Yes, BRSR right now is sector agnostic. So it is applicable for everyone. So if there is any exception, probably that is something which needs to be uh, defined and shown in the BRSR report itself. If yes, what would be the numerator and denominator? I don't know why would we ask that. So I don't think there is any change in the way the formula works. It will be the accounts payable divided by turnover into 100 or something like that. I think the same has to be taken. But if, like I said, if there are any exceptions to be made or any judgments you are making, please ensure that you disclose those judgments appropriately in the report. Is it necessary to share the BRSR with statutory auditors before they sign the year-end financials? So I'm going to answer this absolutely in the personal capacity. There is a requirement in your audit report in the other matter paragraph where it asks whether you have looked at other reports or not. So in that context, I would believe that it is important that you have to have a look at it as well, because you cannot have one revenue number in your financial statements, another revenue number or related party transaction number in the BRSR. That would be a gross negligence. In case any leadership indicator is skipped, then should the clause be written in report and blank? Yeah, it can be blank. You can just say, you can just leave it blank. That should be fine. There's no problem there. Percentage of input material, inputs to total value, input value sourced from supplier. Whether this is applicable? Yes. Like I said, there is no sector related exemptions right now. Every sector has to comply with all the questions. Is BRSR reporting to be done by stat auditor or ESG auditor? So again, who should be the auditor? Have a look at the circular given on July 12th. Very clear. It need not be a stat auditor. It can be anybody else as well who has relevant expertise. How can finance professional excel in ESG reporting or implementation given that not all data is pertaining to finance? So here there is some work to be done. A lot of work to be done as a matter of fact, and there are certain partnerships that need to be made. We need to collaborate with our sustainability professionals who are more technical in nature to ensure that we also have some visibility into the data. Just like, for example, if you are doing some actual valuation, you depend on an actual valuer, right? The same way here also we need to have some experts to be brought in. If a company is submitting report with all plans and office, should it write a stand? No, standalone or consolidated is as per your accounts parlance. In your accounts, if it is standalone, it is standalone. Can we write in BRSR? Yeah, please refer to note or schedule number. Yes, it can be. Cross references are applicable or allowed in BRSR reporting, but ensure that the data is appropriate there. How listed companies view on this BRSR, how they're accepting and where finding. So I don't think there is a choice there. Everybody has to take a top 1,000 listed companies. And yes, there are a lot of difficulties. I think that is something, like I said, it is not at a mature stage. People are bringing in a lot of expertise by various ways, bringing in professionals to try to handle the situation. For male and female to be counted separately for calculating the turnover rate. Yes, that is the requirement. If I am reporting BRSR on standalone basis, should I mention details of JVs and subsidiary or not in question 23? Yeah, question 23 is very specific to what is the structure of the company. So the details have to be included. Okay. So I'm not sure if there are any further questions. Oh, I think there is one. Is there any submission deadline for BRSR reporting every year? It has to be along with your annual report. Have a look at the FAQs released by SEBI very recently. I think a week or two back. They have given a very clear guidance on when this BRSR reporting has to be submitted. It is with the annual report. Same issue can be both a risk and opportunity. Yes, you can report it both if that is the way. So it's a statement of fact. I mean, if it is so, but very seldom it is such. How to check if policies are actually implemented by companies or not? Okay, let's take a very simple thing. Like for example, company said we want to give trainings to all their factory employees. You can look at the training records, right? In the same way, others also. There will always be place where there is a policy how it is getting implemented. Let us say they said we will do sustainable sourcing. Whether they have sustainable policy, whether the recruitment of the vendors is being as per the policy, do they have a checklist? Are they following that checklist? That can be looked at, right? In annual accounts like TCS, why do we have integrated report and BRSR disclosures? Like I said, integrated reporting is voluntary. So BRSR allows you to do your reporting under any international standard and cross-refer all your BRSR disclosures to that reporting standard. Okay, one more question. I think whether assurance needs to be given for value chain compliance. If yes, then how data can be collated. So this is issue which is happening, but I think this is the time is till 25, 26. So people are still wondering how to do this. So it is a complicated issue. You need to understand and identify first who are the value chain partners, try to educate them, find out templates which can be used uniformly across so that the data can be collated. So engaging with the organization and the value chain partners is a primary requirement. Can previous year's numbers be corrected if noticed while preparing current year BRSR? You may, you may do it, but with a note saying that why there is such. But yeah, I think it should be. How is being a social auditor related with BRSR assurance portal? Is it compulsory to be both? I'm not sure if I don't know how to answer this question. How is being a social auditor related with? No, see, BRSR assurance provider, you need to have relevant expertise and should be able to issue the reports under the relevant standards. So it is not compulsory that you should be a social auditor or anything. You can be an chat accountant as well, or you can be something else as well. So there is no restriction on which profession you are in. It is again profession agnostic. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm done. Thank you very much for patient
Thank you,
listening.
sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Now we request CA Tejinder ma'am to just please start the vote of thanks. Tejinder ma'am.
Thank you, Pranav. Thank you for such a good deliberation on this topic. On behalf of the SRSB and the Dehradun branch of ICI, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to our distinguished guest here, Chairperson of SRSB, CA Shri Priya Kumarji, our Chairman, CA Dr. Anuj Goyalji, our esteemed speaker, CA Pranav Iwaniji. Special thanks to CA Pranav Iwaniji for sharing valuable knowledge and insight on BRSR. Your expertise and engaging presentation has significantly enhanced our understanding of this critical topic. We extend a heartfelt appreciation to all our participants for joining us today. Your active participation and eagerness to further your knowledge are truly commendable. A special thanks to the organizing team of SRSB and the support staff for their tireless efforts behind the scenes. Your dedication and hard work has made this event possible and successful. From the Dehradun branch of ICAI, I want to personally thank the chairperson and the vice chairman of the board for their leadership in putting their webinar together. Your vision and guidance has been instrumental in making today's event a success. As we conclude, let's keep the lesson we have learned today in mind as we work together a more sustainable and equitable future. Together, we can make real differences. Thank you all once again and have a great day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And we are inviting all the participants to join the next series of webinar on BRSR. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Jasmeet, sir.